And so let's sit nice and tall and close the eyes. And just take a moment to experience our own presence. And take a moment to experience the beautiful energy of the morning, the sacred energy of the morning. Notice how that energy moves around, throughout, and also exists within. That you're not separate from that. And because you're not separate from that, and no one and nothing else is separate from that, then you are also not separate from anything that is part of that oneness. We walk this path of life together, this path of existence, this path of inquiry, this path of suffering, and this path of healing. We walk this path together. And placing the right hand on the heart and the left hand over the right. May we all come to know our unity, our oneness. And may we come to truly honor the path we share, the life we share, and the love we share. Take a nice breath in for Om. Bowing the head toward the heart, acknowledging all that is. And draw the face back to center, release the hands. So good to see you all. Thank you for coming in. So on Sunday mornings, I like to marry the talk in the Wisdom Circle to what we were talking about in class because so many stay for the talk. And what we were talking about in class this morning is this concept of steadfastness and what that means in yoga, what it could mean to us. And the first thing that I'd like to just point out is that steadfastness is not cold, hard discipline. It's not cold. It's not rigid. It's not inflexible. It's not about being militant. Steadfastness is about being consistent. Consistent in your inquiry, consistent in your compassion, consistent in your devotion, consistent in your studies, consistent in your reflections, consistent in your presence, your awareness. It's like an artist. An artist is consistently creating. Even when they're blocked, they're still creating. It's like a writer. A writer consistently writes. You know? It's like a mother. She consistently mothers. A yoga practitioner, what we might call a sadhak, is consistently practicing. But it's not a cold, hard practice. It is a deep, compassionate inquiry. It is being a presence in your own life that is constantly seeking the light inside and the light everywhere else and every other person and every other being. So the steadfastness, Patanjali talks about it in his Yoga Sutras. Krishna talks about it in the Bhagavad Gita. You know, Chinmaya, Guru Mahima talks about it. All the teachers talk about it. All the great teachers through all the ages talked about the steadfastness. And they said, look, a simple explanation. Swami Shivananda suggested that a yogi should be able to hold any yoga posture for 3 hours without ever once wanting to get out, with joy in their heart, peace in their mind, and equanimity. What would that take? To hold bridge pose, to hold handstand, to hold warrior one, to stay in shavasana for 3 hours without ever once wanting to get out, without falling asleep, without being bored, without desiring something other than what is. So that's your inquiry. That's the steadfast inquiry, is to find out for yourself what you need to let go of and what you need to adapt, adjust, and accommodate in order to hold that space for yourself, to allow yourself to experience that deep of a practice. To me, that's exciting. To me, it says, get out of your day-to-day routines of just trying to control everything and start learning about what you cannot control. Start learning about where you're absent and start being present there. Start learning about where you neglect yourself and others, where you neglect your service, where you neglect your studies, and start diving in deep. Empower the creative curiosity of your mind to the artistry of the universe. Empower yourself to learn. Nichiren Daishonin was the founder or the father of Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism. And the premise of his Buddhism was that liberation comes through education. That a person who is uneducated cannot be liberated. That you need to be educated. What do you need to be educated in? 2 + 2 is 4? You know? Do you need to be educated in math and English and, fine languages or whatever you want to put down as the subject? Or is your education more about learning about reality, learning about your own presence, understanding that there are so many things that you cannot control, but you grasp at them and that causes suffering. Learning that there are certain ways you see yourself, which are predominantly false, and learning how to let go of those beliefs about yourself and about others. Learning about your strengths, learning about your creativity, learning about your connection. That's the education. And then allowing yourself to come into a deeper understanding that all of this world, these people, these animals, these birds, these trees, this grass, this air, this fire, this wind, this water, this earth, is all sacred. And it all comes from the same source, without exception. All of it. And then your education continues into trying to realize, working or studying or practicing to realize the parts of you that are really super resistant to that statement. Why? And how do you restructure those old, outdated beliefs about separativeness, about isolation, and come into a greater, true unity that heals not only yourself, but also the world you walk through. The Buddha said, the way you see the world is the way the world is. So if you see a world of hate and violence, then that's the world you'll live in. But if you see a world of love, if you see a world that is so potent with compassion, so potent with artistry, so potent with beauty, then that's the world that you will live in. And then yoga takes it one step further and says that through steadfastness of vision, if you choose to see the world as a world of beauty, a world of compassion, a world of love, then you become so strong in that vision that nothing can shake it. Not even violence. Not even hatred. Not even irritation or distraction. Nothing can shake your vision of the potency of the world. Nothing can shake your vision of the potency of unity. Nothing can shake your vision. No doubt can infiltrate your heart. That's where the steadfastness is so important. Because once doubt infiltrates the heart, then we have an uphill battle from there in order to come full circle back around to the understanding of the immense potency of all that is. Doubt, one little doubt in the heart, will send you spiraling down. And you doubt the potency of love, well, then you're going to also doubt the potency of compassion, the potency of beauty, the potency of creativity, the potency of unity. If you doubt the potency of love, you're going to doubt the potency of everything that is associated with it. So the moment that you recognize that there's a doubt in the heart, your steadfast nature calls you to clear that doubt by resolving it into love. The moment that there's a doubt in your heart about the potency of unity, then the steadfast nature of your practice calls you to behave in a way that reinforces unity, that brings it back to light so that it becomes the dominant theme again, rather than something that's kind of a nice thought and would be good one day, but it'll never happen now, which is what a lot of people think. That's a nice story. It's a good thought. Yay for you. But it's not yay for you. It's yay for us. For all of us. There's so much separation. Right now, there's a lot of steadfastness and hatred. I'm sorry to say it, but there is. There's so much steadfastness and violence in the world. So much steadfastness and harm. So much so that those of us who claim to be one with love, we're becoming more full of doubt every day because we're looking at that and we're afraid that that's stronger than we are. We're afraid that that's more powerful than we are. We're afraid that hate really will win. So in that moment, we've forgotten. We've forgotten that all things come from one, universal consciousness. And that universal consciousness is impersonal. It doesn't like you and dislike somebody else. There's nothing so silly as to think something like that. It's very childish perspective. It's impersonal. So it doesn't like or dislike you. But you are an extension of it. Therefore, you have as much power within you as it. And the question is, what will you do with that? Will you create a world where people do nothing but cry and wail and suffer? Or will you, within your own self, use the empowerment that you've been given to manifest a world where people heal, where bonds heal, where people love, where they talk and they communicate, where everybody is free to sit and have this conversation. And everybody is free to sit and lead this conversation too. Because that's as important. I'm no different than you are. I'm just okay to talk about it, you know? But you got to talk about it too. We all have to talk about it. We all need to remind each other of the potency that we all carry every day, consistently, over a long period of time, with little to no interruption and great enthusiasm, as our beloved Patanjali had said. Steadfastness. You go into your yoga practice, and nobody here has done it yet, which is very interesting. In New Jersey, they would do it all the time. We'd come to swan pose. Oh, yeah. It's variant pigeon pose. And in pigeon pose, there's a greater external rotation on that front leg, and the shin is parallel to the front edge of the mat. So it's a little bit of a more intense kind of experience, but swan is intense too. I mean, they're just different, you know. And inevitably, when we get ready for that practice, somebody or 5 somebodies leave the room. Gotta go to the bathroom, be right back. The steadfastness is not leaving the room when it gets difficult. The steadfastness is remembering the peace, the wherewithal, the love, the light, the joy that resides within you in spite of the difficulty. And staying. And working at it. And finding the silver lining of it. The peace within it. It's a challenging posture, yes, but it's nothing compared to much of what you encounter in your lifetime. It's a challenging posture, but it's nothing like labor. It's nothing like illness. It's nothing like hate and being hated. It's nothing like doubt and being doubted. It's nothing like those things. But what you can learn from it is how to remain steadfast in a state of yoga in spite of others sending you messages of hate, messages of doubt, messages of that type. What that posture teaches you is how to wait and have faith in the waiting. That at the other end of it, and even throughout it, you are unaffected, undisturbed, and unchanged in your sacred state of being. That nothing can touch who you really are, the light within you. Somebody could punch you in the arm, sure. Somebody could even shoot you and kill you, sure. This body part of you, but not you. Not who you really are. That's eternal. So there's a lot there. There's a lot there to think about this concept of steadfastness and not falling into the ego trap of being harsh, hard, overly logical, There's this the statement of Patanjali about your practice, in order for it to become a supreme practice or a sacred, consistent practice, that you need to do it consistently over a long period of time. And for years, so many people took that to mean that you've got to practice the Ashtanga yoga, the hard, heavy-hitting yoga practice every single day, no matter how you feel, no matter what. And my suggestion is that that's a limited view. That is a limited view of Patanjali's message. That yes, if it is appropriate for you to do your Sun Salutation A series, B series, C series, that if it is appropriate for you to have that high active practice, then you should do it. Sure, why not? But what if you wake up with the flu? What if you're 6 months pregnant? What if you've got degenerative disc disease in your small of your back? What if you've got some unexplained excruciating pain? Is that the practice you should go to? And this is where the flexibility in the steadfastness comes in. The flexibility in the steadfastness is you should be aware of yourself, the potency of all yoga practices, such that on the morning when you wake up and you cannot get out of bed, that you know the appropriate practice to go to, which might not be that one. That you understand that as a biological being, you're in need of diverse approaches to wellness. Diverse approaches to wellness. Diverse approaches to health. Excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat. It'll pass. Diverse approaches to presence. Which may include having a sip of tea in the middle of your talk.
You have to scratch it so bad.
Oh, I'm telling you. It happens so often. I have so many allergies. And, how many of you have allergies? Are they fun?
Oh.
Could you lose your enthusiasm for life and the change of seasons? It takes a lot to recognize that it's just an allergy, and it doesn't change the essence of who you are, that it's just another experience. Cancer is just another experience. Heart disease is just another experience. Diabetes is just another way of experiencing life. Epilepsy is just another way of experiencing life. But we look at them, and our mind fluctuates so greatly that we say, I've been diagnosed. That's all I am. I am an epileptic. I'm a cancer patient. I'm a heart patient. I'm something. I'm ADHD. Whatever it happens to be. And that is a rigid application of a diagnostic tool. How is getting up in the morning and practicing the same salutation series every single day, no matter how you feel, any different than that rigid application of a diagnostic tool? You have to be more flexible with yourself than that. Otherwise, all you'll ever know is rigidity. And in order for love to flow freely, and for us to be steadfast in our application of love and our application of compassion, we need to be able to breathe. We need to be able to be flexible. Because you can't approach every person that you want to express love to, for those of you who know what Ashtanga Yoga is, like a Surya Namaskar Part A. I mean, that would be entirely too much in your face. Some people it's a little more yin-like. Some people it's a little more restorative yoga. Some people it's a little more meditative. Some people it's a little more silence. So you, as a practitioner who is looking to bring a sense of steadfastness into your application of yoga, your experience of yoga, you need to be well versed and rounded in all applications, rounded in all ways of acceptance, rounded in all applications of love and compassion. Does that make sense? Yeah. So when our teenage kid comes home and says, I just decided I don't want to go to college, most parents would say, excuse me, but you have to go to college because you need to do this and you need to do that. And we try to kind of streamline them into a really rigid way of living. It's not written anywhere that a kid has to go to college. It's not written anywhere that someone has to remember your birthday. It's not written anywhere that someone even has to acknowledge you or me. It's not written anywhere that we're owed anything. We just think it makes us feel special, and so we like it. When people agree with us, when they do what we want them to do, when they acknowledge us, it makes us feel good. So we like that. And so we become really steadfast in a harmful way. We become steadfast in requiring others to do our work for us instead of doing our own work. In yoga, it's a very common practice that when your birthday comes around, you do something for someone else. That your birthday is not about just kind of celebrating you. It's about celebrating all the service you bring to the world. And so you do more service. In India, there's a practice in many traditions, family traditions, where child's 2 years old or so, they'll lay out a bunch of different things on a blanket. One would be a Bhagavad Gita. One might be a hammer. One might be, something that has to do with medicine. One might be something that has to do with math. One might be paper and pencil. I don't know. They put a whole bunch of things out. And they put the child down, and the child goes to what they're interested in. And that's what they cultivate. And they say, well, if the child is not interested in this age in these other things, then why would we force them on them? What we want is for the child to grow into their curiosity so that they learn because they love the learning, not because they're manipulated into it. And at a couple of different ages, they do it again because people change. And so if the first time they were interested in the pen and paper, then great. Next time they're interested in the Bhagavad Gita. Not because they failed at writing and expressing themselves, with the pen and paper, but because they've grown. They've grown, and they've grown in their curiosity, and they've grown in the way that they want to learn about the world and about the potential of the world. And so you empower that. And maybe next time they go for the hammer. And then all we can hope is that they don't think everything is a nail. Ever hear that saying? And hopefully, we all know everything is not a nail. So steadfastness. I guess we could look at steadfastness like it's got different levels to it. Different levels of application or different levels of understanding. And the first and very basic understanding is that steadfastness is doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. It's constant application. But then we have to ask ourselves, constant application of what? Particularly when we're talking about yoga, which is what we talk about here. Well, it's constant application of self to become skillful at the practices, at the different techniques that encompass the gateway to the higher experience of yoga, which is unity. Okay. Which techniques and when? That's part of the practice. Learning that. What's appropriate for you. If you're a person who has uncontrolled high blood pressure, that's high blood pressure that's not controlled by medication, then you're not going to become steadfast at doing headstands. They're contraindicated for you. But what you might become steadfast at and very skillful at is pranayama. The type of pranayama that can actually correct your blood pressure. So you see, it goes beyond just logical kind of, or not logical, but just a cold rigidity. It goes beyond just cold repetition. And it goes into learning, expanding your mind in a way that's really positive and supportive about what your potential is and what supports that potential. And in doing so, you're also learning about what other people's potential are and what will support that. Because nothing is ever meant to be kept. Everything is meant to be given away. Everything. We oftentimes, when we do the YTT, I have this little saying that I share with them. I own nothing, and no one owes me anything. I own nothing, and no one owes me anything. And they say, inevitably, but you own a house. No, actually, I don't own a house. It's not possible to own a house. The bank owns the house. And if the bank didn't own the house because I had paid enough money to the bank to have a piece of paper that said I own the house, then that house would never be able to burn down. It would never be able to be flooded. It would never be able to be destroyed in any way, shape, or form because I owned it. And I would therefore be able to control it. No, it's a fallacy. I don't own anything. I don't own this sweater. I don't own these glasses. I don't own these eyes. If I owned these eyes, they wouldn't be getting weaker as I get older. Yeah. I don't even own this body, right? This body is my vehicle. It's here with me for a while to kind of help me maneuver through this life, but I don't own this. If I owned this, do you think that I would have low back pain? No. Do you think that I would be susceptible to any kind of pain and suffering physically? Of course not. I don't own this. It does what it has to do because it's a biological mechanism that has its own process. So I don't own anything. I don't even own my spirit. How do I not own my spirit? Because most of the time I forget it's there. So I relinquish ownership through forgetfulness. I don't own anything. And I don't need to own the spirit either, because it just is. And it's beyond the concept of ownership. And nobody owes me anything. Nobody owes me anything. What do I mean by nobody? Nobody. No one here, no one out there, no one. Not my children, not my husband, not my government, not my friends, not my enemies. I give somebody $10 and think they should pay me back. They don't owe me $10. That's an expectation that I put on them. They don't owe me $10. I'm nice to somebody, they owe me being nice to me back? No, that's ridiculous. They don't owe me anything. I raise my children, they owe it to me not to embarrass me in public. That's funny. Just ask my kids. That's just so funny. I married my husband, he owes me fidelity. That's also ridiculous. Do I prefer he have fidelity? Yes. Do I wish to control that fidelity? Of course. But do I own him as a person? No. And do I want to be with somebody who has fidelity only because I demand it? No. He would not be the man I think he is then. He has the fidelity he has because he wishes to, not because I demand it of him. You don't want to be in a relationship that is demanding, requiring, manipulating, controlling. Because if you are, you have to give away some part of yourself and your potency in order to hold up to those demands, whether you're the one making them or it's the other person. You will lose your freedom. And you will lose your steadfastness of yoga because you'll be caught up in the fear. Well, maybe he won't be faithful. And then that becomes a hindrance to the relationship. It becomes a hindrance to happiness. It becomes a hindrance to self-study. It becomes a hindrance to non-harming. It becomes a hindrance to truth. It becomes a hindrance to non-grasping. It becomes a hindrance to contentment. Because if all I'm ever thinking about is he faithful or is he not faithful? Then what am I not thinking about? Yoga. If all we ever think about is this government good or is this government bad? Is this person right? Is this person wrong? Is that person okay with me? Is that person not okay with me? Then what are we not thinking about? Yoga, unity, compassion, love, potency, potential. Steadfastness is staying within the realm of freedom consistently and allowing others to also. And that freedom is not freedom that harms. It's freedom that frees, that liberates. Freedom that ends suffering. Nowadays, people say, well, I'm free, so I get to tell you exactly what I think. That's not freedom. That's manipulation. That's fear. That's anger. That's lashing out. Freedom is not harmful. True freedom, true liberation doesn't harm anybody. It frees you. And in freedom, there's no suffering. So steadfastness would be exploring what that means consistently over a long period of time with little to no interruption, with great enthusiasm, and with absolute inclusion of everybody you ever meet, whether you like them or not, whether they make you cringe or they make you melt. It's recognizing that they're in some process, somewhere along their path, and they don't owe you anything, and you don't own anything that has to do with them. So let them be. Let them be. And pay attention to your work, Pay attention to what you are doing and what you are not doing. And change your mind about the things that need to change so that you can be a kinder influence walking through the world. An influence that's based in love, an influence that's based in peace, and an influence that's based in unity. That's where we need to be steadfast, in our unity. Any thoughts? Questions? Yes?
I'll try and explain this as best I can. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but
It's okay, Cal.
Okay, I do wholeheartedly believe that at our essence, at our core, it is love.
Mm-hmm.
However, and you touched on it a little bit earlier, and I'm hoping that I remembered how I'm going to phrase this. I haven't had TV in almost 15 years, so I don't watch the news. I don't read the newspaper, but it's still almost impossible to not hear about the violence, the hate, the racism, though, whatever you want to call it, that is running rampant in the world. So trying to be a realist, how is it next to impossible to not lose hope and believe that love is going to conquer, that love is, because I believe that the divine essence, force, whatever, doesn't use force. More or less, it allows. So even if humans are running rampant and spreading hate, it's not. It won't try and change that. It's just, it allows. So putting those two things together, how is it hard to not have doubt, which I understand is poison? How is it hard to not have doubt? How is it,
So hard. It is hard. It's so hard to not look at the news and be like, oh my God, I'm moving someplace else. I'm going to go to an island somewhere. Costa Rica. Somewhere. Anywhere. Anywhere. It's so hard to not have doubt plant its seed. It's so hard to not leave. One way that I can suggest to look at it is, I completely agree with you. The divinity, this cosmic consciousness, as we call it, which doesn't have a name, but we call it by many names, it's not personal.
Right.
It does not strike you down and lift you up. It's not personal. It's patterned. There's patterns in nature that happen, and when the patterns aren't happening, there's stillness. And the stillness we can equate to love. The stillness, the neutrality, the ongoing blossoming of the flower, we can just equate that to balance. We can equate that in our language to love. We can equate that to the quiet. And then patterns whip up like hurricanes. Have you ever known a hurricane to last forever? No. The hurricane will commit an amount of destruction in its path, but eventually the hurricane will return to what? Stillness. Have you ever known an earthquake to last forever? No. You know that the earthquake will cause a lot of destruction in its path. It will shake tremendously for a short period of time, and it can absolutely obliterate things. But what will it eventually return to? Stillness. The Big Bang. This is not like quantum physics science, even though it is, but it's not. If you follow this kind of logic, and this is so simplistically put, so anybody listening to this, I know it's more complicated than this, okay? Just give me a break. The Big Bang Theory. Something happened, and things started spinning, a very tight little spin. And there's this concept in science called the ever-expanding universe, right? So that real tight little explosion began to get wider or broader or more encompassing. It began to spread out. And as a thing spreads, is it true that it's not as concentrated? Right. That's why you don't feel the same amount when you're 100 miles from the epicenter as you do at the epicenter. Right? That's why the further away you are, take this with a grain of salt because I know that there's a relationship there. A little displaced from it, you're going to feel a major impact. But then the further you go from it, you're not going to feel it as much. That's why on the East Coast, we don't feel what happens on the West Coast. So this universe is expanding. And the more this universe expands, the less strength those patterns have. Or the less intensity, we'll say, not strength, the less intensity those patterns have. And the concept that scientists are now grappling with is that at some point it will stop. And guess what it will return to? Stillness. Until the next little Big Bang Theory. So when we say all things return to love, they do, eventually. And on our level of existence, we can recognize that all wars will eventually end. Not all at the same time, probably, because of human free will. But each war will eventually end when it plays itself out. And each tragedy will eventually be resolved. And what will it be resolved back into? Some level of stillness.
I personally believe when that time comes, we may no longer be here.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think when the ultimate time comes, which in yoga, it's very much straightforward. When Brahma blinks his eye, it's done. But it begins again. And we come back. I won't look like this, you won't look like that. We'll have different roles we play. One of you will be sitting here, I could be homeless on the street, whatever. It's what it is. Every time. But they call it a blink of Brahma's eye because that's in cosmic time, how fast, or timelessness, say it properly. In the cosmic realm, that's how rapid it is. But in our realm, it's a linear timeline that lasts however long it lasts. Some say 6 billion years, 6 billion years, 60 billion years, 72 billion years, whatever. It's beyond our capacity to understand it. But we can have a really interesting conversation about it, for sure. And we can ask ourselves on a really practical level, because that's very esoteric, right? That's kind of unreachable, that understanding. But on a practical level, what are we saying? On a practical level, what we're asking ourselves is, how do I use these techniques of yoga? How do I embrace the concept of steadfastness, of compassion, of love, of peace, of unity, to bring me, in my experience of this life, to a state of stillness, to a state of peace, so that I can be peace walking through the world, and thereby empower other people to choose to do the same or not, because I don't own them, and they don't owe me anything. And then if you want to look at it on a really, really practical level, suffering sucks. I mean, do you want to do it? Do you want to suffer? Is that what you want in this life? No, it sucks. Suffering, absolutely, is not what we're looking for, even if we think we are. So if what you're looking for is peace, then look for it. Start being it. Practice it. Because that's the only way that it will have a major influence in your life. But if all we ever say is, wow, it'd be really nice if there were more love in the world. By the way, I hate you. Then they're never going to have the experience of there being more love in the world. The only way you're going to experience there being more love in the world is if you put it there. Otherwise, you're putting something else. We got enough of that. Yeah, it's a great question, Cal. You always have great questions. You should never apologize for asking questions. Yoga is based on questions. We read the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, it's 18 chapters of questions. It's just Arjuna constantly asking Krishna. So Krishna is like the Godhead. He's like the cosmic consciousness embodied. And Arjuna's got his ear because he's his charioteer. And Arjuna's like, why do I want to do this? Why can't I do this instead? Why should I listen to you? What about this? What about this? What about that? Explain this, explain that. He's not just saying, I'll do what you tell me to. No, he's asking questions so that he has clarity. And so in the yoga tradition, it's not about blind adherence to rules. It's not about a blind adherence to doing what someone tells you to do. It's about understanding. Really, really understanding. Working to understand. Working to have clarity. Otherwise, it's just another form of ignorance. So if we want to have clarity about love, then we got to be the love. We got to go out there and try it on. See what happens. Ask questions. Yeah, it's powerful stuff. I don't know, the first time I practiced yoga, I don't know what happened. It was pretty amazing, though. And it was really powerful at a really vulnerable time in my life. It was years and years and years ago. It was at Gold's Gym in Oakhurst, New Jersey.
Gold's Gym.
Awesome.
They had just opened, And I was a gym rat. I was totally always at the gym. I worked out at the gym 7 days a week. A lot of people thought I should go into bodybuilding. And I was like, and I would go to their power vinyasa class. And I was like, work it out. Now that I look back on it, I think that they really kind of had yoga confused with Jane Fonda, but whatever. But I do just remember that the teacher that was teaching the yoga class did have the wherewithal to focus on breathing. And I was very traumatized at that age. I was very traumatized. I had a really very, very traumatic childhood. And I just remember walking out of that class, and the sky was so freaking blue, and the trees were so green. And I thought to myself, this is not my life. I felt like I walked into a movie scene, like those movies where everything is brighter than it's meant to be. Have you ever seen a movie like that? Technicolor. Yeah. But it was my life. It was a glimpse of what I could choose. And for some time, I didn't. For some time, I just thought it was cool. And I still continued with self-destructive behaviors, and I still continued with the doubt, and I still continued with whatever it is to be human. I continued, and I still continue. But a little bit at a time, it just got into me. It just got into my perspective of life and my perspective of suffering, my own suffering, the suffering of others as well. And I just decided one day, I woke up, I said, I'm not suffering anymore. Not like that. I'm done. It's time for change. And I literally packed my bags. I left. I left a relationship that was very, just not a healthy relationship. I left everything. And not everything, most things. I left all the self-injurious stuff. I left all of the self-harming. And I just went into reclusion for a little while. And I dove deep into yoga. It was right there for me. And I just said, I got to change, and I don't know. I can't do it while I'm with this group over here. It ain't going to happen. Because they were still too invested in self-harming. And so I just went quiet. I went to stillness for a while, and I went to some pretty intense stillness, let me tell you. And what I found while I was there was that, yeah, it's up to me. What my life is going to become is up to me. What your life is going to become is up to you. And what we do together is up to us. And I just set an intention that the rest of my life would be dedicated to service. Service in the principles of yoga, in the principles of unity, in the principles of love. And I would just do my best to support I like it. It works. I still suffer, but my relationship to it is different now. Some of the time. You know. But all the time, I know that it's a choice. And as days go by, you get better at making the choice. And better at seeing the potential instead of the doubt and giving into that. Any other thoughts or questions? Yeah, great questions, great thoughts. What do you think, Alejandro?
You just gotta acquire the tools to maintain peace in every situation.
That's true. Exactly. That's why you got to go to yoga or practice. Doesn't matter where you practice at home, you practice at the ashram, you practice at a studio
No,
somewhere.
wait a minute. I thought if you practice here, you can't practice anywhere else.
You're a Canadian, aren't you?
Now we're talking Kool-Aid again.
Yeah, that's the Kool-Aid, right? Anybody ever tells you that, you run. Seriously.
Right.
Anybody ever tells you that, you run. This is a conversation we had the other day where I was sharing that I used to practice at a studio where that's what the owner told students. She said, if you practice with me, you should not be practicing with any other teacher. You'll become ignorant. No. It's like, why would you tell anybody that? That's such a limitation on people's freedom, all because of your own fear. I mean, it's... Now, in the past, if you have a guru, you have one guru. So I have a guru. I have a teacher. He's my teacher. I still study with 10,000 other teachers. But he's my go-to person. You know, he's my spiritual teacher. It's different. There will only be one guru. But even if you adopt a guru and you find out that you were mistaken, do you know that you can just unadopt them? Why can you unadopt them? Because you're free. In your being, you're free to make whatever choice you want. It's a good idea if you unadopt a guru and any mantra they may have given you to apologize a little bit to the divine consciousness for taking their time and setting all of that up for you. Just kind of a good idea. But it's okay. You know, you have that absolute right to do so. And you have the absolute ability to practice with whoever you want to practice with. But be mindful of who you call your guru. And this is very important. Be mindful of who you call your guru. Because the conversation or the wisdom says that you will only ever become as awakened as the person you call your guru. So if your guru is Jim Jones, you might be out of luck. You know, for those of you who are my age and know who that even is. Yeah. If your guru is your bartender, you know what I'm saying? They may give you great advice, but they're not going to lead you to awakening. If your guru is someone who is selfish, self-centered, then that's what you're learning. So you got to be careful if you go down that path. You don't just adopt any guru. Your heart will tell you if you listen to it who the proper guru for you is. Absolutely. And when I met Swamiji, I knew. You know, I just knew. He really emanates love. He's a person. He's flawed. Of course he's flawed. Absolutely. Everybody is flawed. Flaw is nothing. And I've heard him be stern with people. And I've heard him be irritated. And I've heard him, you know. When I was in India, he was in the cafeteria eating, and he would have his lunch after everybody else did because he liked to eat in silence. And so I walked in. I didn't realize he was in there. I walked in, and he said, "Sit." And you know, I was like, oh no, I'm gonna get told something now. I figured maybe I did something I shouldn't have done or whatever. That was my first time in India. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. But I sat down and he was eating a little bit and then he stopped eating and he said, what is it with Ashad? Why does he talk? He never shuts up. What is it? I said, I don't know. He said, okay, go to class. I was like, wow. Now, on the one hand, the person who's not looking for a deeper reflection would be like, wow, he just totally gossiped about Harshad. No, he didn't. He expressed his irritation and then let it go. And he really taught me a valuable lesson in that moment about how to let go of things. That yes, you recognize the irritation, you recognize whatever it is that needs to be recognized, and then you let it go, you know? So he's human. He's not beyond being irritated. Dalai Lama's not beyond being irritated either. He tells a story about yelling at an airline person who I guess asked him about his hair or something, I don't know. And he got irritated. He said, because everybody asks him. And that's the one question that he's got short patience on. Why are you so worried about my hair? Whatever. He's bald, right? So it's just funny. We look at these teachers and we expect them to be perfect. They're human. They're human. They're working it out too. You know? Yeah. Oh, this being human is so much fun. Isn't it? Absolutely. All right, let's sit up nice and tall and close the eyes. That wasn't the Dalai Lama either. I think that was one of the monks that study under him that told that story about the airport. But the Dalai Lama tells stories too, all the time. The question is, are we learning from the stories? And so take a breath in and a breath out. And give yourself permission to learn. And give yourself permission to witness. And give yourself permission to explore what it is to truly embody the principles of yoga. Non-violence, non-stealing, truthfulness, economy of energy, non-grasping, contentment, cleanliness, compassionate discipline, self-study, and devotion. Give yourself permission to truly explore the virtues of yoga and what they might bring to your life, and thereby to the life of all others around you. Placing the right hand on the heart and the left hand over the right. And together we'll chant one beautiful Om. Take a breath in. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings everywhere find peace, love, light, and happiness. May all beings know their oneness. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaste. Thank you all so much for being here. So good to see each and every one of you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your brunch, your lunch, the sun, the sky, the moon, the stars, whatever comes your way.